And again, guys, don't get the FBI confused with the CIA. They're their own agencies, their own distinct agendas, their own distinct personalities. And sorry, I thought I shut my phone off. And I guess we could talk about the history of the CIA next week. I guess I'd be. So if you watched last week's episode, then you know that we talked about the origin story of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. And I was going to stop there after that episode, but throughout the episode I kept getting these odd, weird, somewhat sinister text messages on my phone daring me to discuss the history of the CIA. And me being somebody that doesn't back down from a challenge, I'm gonna do just that. I'm gonna tell you guys all of the dark and nefarious things that the Central Intelligence Agency has done over the years. Where do we start? Air America? Do we talk about MK Ultra? Do we talk about the fact that in the 1990s it was found out that the CIA was selling crack cocaine to the residents of Los Angeles in order to fund guerrilla fighters in Latin America? No, you know what? No, I'm not going to stop. The people, I know you can hear me, the people have a right to know. They deserve to know what you guys are up to. And okay, another text message. I wonder what this one says. Huh? F you, phone. No, I'm not. What is the phone going to do? What is the phone going to do? Okay, I must apologize. I lost my cool for a second there, guys, and I don't know what kind of tangents I was about to go off on, and I'm sorry about that. And we are definitely cool now. We are definitely cool. We are definitely cool now. We are definitely cool. Okay, just make sure. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, good. Okay, so guys, this is part 2 of this series, man. Last week we talked about the origin story of the FBI. This week, the origin story of the CIA, and it's a pretty cool story. It's a pretty interesting story to tell. So let's jump back to 1939. And by now, the FBI has been doing its thing for a few decades. And at this point, it's under the direction of the famous/infamous FBI director, J. Edgar Hoover. But by now, with World War II kicking off in Europe, you've got the FBI, you've got the different branches of the military, and you've got the State Department picking up intelligence as to what exactly is going on in Europe at this time. There's just one problem with that, though. Even though they're all picking up intelligence, they're not picking up intelligence as part of a collaborative effort. Everyone's just kind of going about getting information on their own time and delivering it on their own time. There's no real cooperation. And at the time, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt was getting frustrated that there wasn't a more streamlined way of collecting all this intelligence at once. But Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he could fix that. Know why? Because he's the president. So in July of 1941, Roosevelt creates the Office of the Coordinator of Information, or the COI. And the COI, which is being led by a man named William Wild Bill Donovan, who was a general in the Army and a hero during World War I, its job is to basically collect all the information coming from all the agencies, organize it, and disseminate it accordingly. But as we find out later in December of 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, which meant any information that the COI was getting was not good information, because clearly they did not see that one coming. So in 1942, Roosevelt transforms the COI and he turns it into the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS. And the job of the OSS, like before, is to collect, organize, analyze, and disseminate information. And at the same time, it gets a new fun task. It gets to conduct, quote, unconventional and paramilitary operations, end quote. This meant that the OSS was now sending its agents, was now sending spies to different parts of the world to disrupt the flow of information from, for example, like German and Japanese troops. It was also helping to recruit resistance fighters and many other tasks as well. But the problem with the OSS was that it wasn't being given access to the incredibly sensitive intelligence and incredibly sensitive information that the State Department and the military was privy to. Basically, the State Department and the military looked at the OSS as like the new kid that moves in on the block. And you don't want to play with him because he doesn't fit in. He doesn't fit with what you and your friends are trying to do. And plus, he kind of smells a little bit. Now, even though the OSS lasts for 3 years and it will employ over 13,000 people, by 1945, President Truman decides to disband the OSS because he figures, well, the war is over. We won the war, so there's no real need for any real intelligence gathering. So, yeah. Thanks for your service, but you can go now. Bye-bye. Which, in a year, President Truman would realize he would change his mind. It was not a good idea. And the reason was because by 1946, the United States is about to enter something that is known as the Cold War against the Soviets. And how else are we going to figure out what the Soviet Union is doing other than by collecting intelligence and trying to figure out what we should do about it? So in 1946, the Central Intelligence Group, or the CIG, is established. And like before, in addition to evaluating, organizing, analyzing intelligence that it gathers, the CIG now gets to collect its own intelligence thanks to the help of its own agents and its own spies that are placed in different parts of the world. But the CIG ran into a couple problems. First of all, its agents and its spies that it was using were being lent to them by the military, from the Army, Navy, and so on and so forth. And secondly, it wasn't an independent group, wasn't an independent agency. It was under the jurisdiction of the State Department. So the CIG decided, you know what? We've been a major label agency for a while. I think it's time that we go indie. Because what happens when a group goes indie? They're allowed to spread their creative wings. They're allowed to spread their artistic license and their artistic freedom. So the CIG decides to go independent. They decide to take the indie route. And when you go indie, you get a new look, you get a new brand, and you also decide maybe it's time for a new name. So the CIG changes its name to the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. And the CIA was created under the National Security Act that was passed in 1947. And in a sense, it was also kind of a reunion because a lot of the guys that worked in the old school CIA, the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, all those people came back and worked for the CIA. And this new agency, the Central Intelligence Agency, was now tasked with 4 specific things that it needed to do. First, the CIA had to advise the National Security Council on matters of, obviously, national security. Secondly, it had to make recommendations to the NSC about coordinating intelligence activities of other departments. Third, it had to evaluate intelligence and spread it about accordingly. And finally, quote, perform such other functions as the NSC will direct from time to time. Plus, in 1949, Truman signed the Central Intelligence Agency Act, which gave the CIA power to, quote, secretly fund intelligence operations and conduct personnel actions outside of standard U.S. government procedures. So to sum it up for you, the CIA is basically granted authority to do whatever it needs to do in order to obtain intelligence and, in some cases, cause a little bit of trouble. But then when things go wrong regarding intelligence or regarding a lack of obtaining intelligence, the CIA is the agency that many people blame right off the bat. A couple of examples for you: the Bay of Pigs in the 1960s under JFK, and then more recently, September 11, 2001, when the United States was attacked with planes flying into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. And the CIA has definitely been scrutinized when it comes to, how shall we say, enhanced interview techniques regarding specific persons of interest. You get what I'm trying to say with that long-winded explanation? Torture. I'm talking about torture. But I would like to know from you guys, man, via comments in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on the CIA? Do you think that it's done more harm than good for the United States, or it's done more good than harm? Do you think that it's an agency that doesn't need to exist in the United States? Do you think that the CIA is an agency that needs to be more transparent? I would love to know your thoughts on it. Yeah. Of course you do. Of course you think it's awesome. And that, my friends, is it for this episode of US 101. Now you guys are well versed in the origin stories of the FBI and the CIA. Which agency do you guys like more? Which one do you think that, if you had to join one, which one would you want to join? Let me know in the comment section down below. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And thanks to all of you that have continued to watch the videos, leave comments in the comment section, like the videos, share them. Thanks to all of you that have subscribed to the channel. We continue to grow and we continue to thrive because of all you guys and your support. So You can follow US 101 on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, patreon.com/US101 if you guys want to donate some funds, pledge some funds to the show so that we can update our equipment, get better lighting, get better camera, get better sound. And then on top of that, you guys get really cool rewards like a US 101 pint glass, early access to episodes, and so much more. And on that note, guys, I will see you next week for an all-new episode of US 101. Until then, I am all done. And no, don't think that I just gave you the origin story. That's all we're going to talk about the CIA. No, we're going to talk about MK Ultra. We're going to talk about Air America. We're going to talk about all the crazy things that the FBI and the CIA have done. I'm telling you, we're not done yet. We're not done.